Welcome back to Team Talk, the best debate show about football on YouTube. I've taken myself out of the debate for this week, but still in the gulag, as it were. We've got Joe Tomlinson.
Come on.
Dougie Critchley.
Hello.
It's all quite friendly so far.
Yeah, it
Normally
is.
people giving each other grief. Mikey McCoven.
Hello. I was trying to think of something hostile to say.
Buongiorno. How's everyone?
Yeah, all good, all good. All right, we've got a Champions League themed special this week for the show because it's coming back next week. So, to kick us off, we're going to have a quick kind of over or underrated round. I'm going to say one of these teams, get overrated or underrated down. Quick debate, then we'll move on.
Ooh.
First up, a mighty Champions League side. We've got Bayern Munich. Overrated or underrated?
Okay.
3, 2, 1, reveal.
Oh,
Split
split opinion.
Split.
Exactly what
Love
we
it,
want.
Mikey.
I like this.
Go on then, Mr. Underrated.
Do you want to take us off first, or me to?
No,
Yeah,
if
I'll
you've
do
written
it.
it down, why didn't you?
I'll do it. Yeah, I think
Mikey wants it.
Bayern Munich had a poor season last year, even though they still won the Bundesliga. I feel like going into this season's Champions League, if this is a Champions League special as it is, I think Bayern's chances in the Champions League have probably been underrated a bit as a result, despite the fact that Thomas Tuchel is a Champions League winning manager, one of the most recent Champions League winning managers, despite the fact that they've strengthened considerably in the forward line, of course, with the capture of Harry Kane. The defence, looks a lot stronger now as well. I just think Bayern Munich are easily, aside from Man City and Real Madrid, the favourites for this competition. But I feel like, especially fans in England, will probably be maybe thinking Arsenal would have a better chance than them. Even some fans probably think that PSG have a stronger chance than them. I think Bayern, front to back, are one of the three teams to beat in this year's competition.
I think my reasoning behind underrated is maybe slightly different to Mikey's as well. I think they're almost underrated by their own fan base at this stage. I think there's quite a lot of discourse amongst Bayern Munich fans at the moment that they obviously, while strengthening with Harry Kane, had a fairly underwhelming window with the exit of Benjamin Pavard into Milan without finding a replacement, and the failure to capture an out-and-out six. So they aren't at the moment saying they are one of the favourites for the Champions League, when even without those players, I think they are comfortably one of the favourites for the Champions League. So therefore, I think you have to say underrated, given their fan base to a level aren't happy right now. And the fact, like Mikey said, Thomas Tuchel is a knockout machine.
I feel like ever since Harry Kane moved there, all I've seen anyway, so maybe it's slightly different, is that people say that Bayern Munich are like second favourites for the Champions League.
They've been getting hammered.
The
club has been getting hammered by their own fan base.
From what I've seen outside of their fan base, I'm not following any Bayern Munich ultras and ITKs. But I've seen a lot of people just quite rate Bayern Munich. They've said they've got a fan, like literally what you've said essentially about Thomas Tuchel's fantastic manager, bringing in one of the best strikers in the world. Still got Jamal Musiala, Gnabry, Sane. Like their attack is amazing. Yes, I think they are. I have seen people say that. Okay, one injury in midfield, one injury in defence could kind of screw them off a little bit. But if they do have a fully fit side, I think everybody's, or at least what I've seen.
So you would say fairly
rated
rated, then, not overrated.
I would put fairly rated, but you can't do that. You have to put over or under. So I think because of them being second best,
so you don't think they're going to?
I don't think. I think they are flat out. If you look at the teams and everything, they're the second best.
So however,
I think what will happen in reality is they won't make it to the final, which would be what second best is. And so
that would be biggest underperformance, not necessarily overrated.
But it was overrated.
It's not a million miles away as statements. I think they've underachieved over the last few years quite drastically, given the talent they've got. I think a lot of those players have flopped internationally as well. I think huge questions need to be asked about Sane, Gnabry, Kimmich, Goretzka. These should be, some of the best players of their generation. I don't think they've won enough outside of the Bundesliga. I mean, they lost to Villarreal a few years ago. They got comprehensively beaten by Man City this year. I think it was PSG last year. I think they've hugely underachieved given the talent available for them. And I just think they're slightly overrated as a team right now. As Zac says, they've only got 3 central midfielders. They've only got 3 centre-backs, a couple of injuries.
Who's overrating them, though?
Well, the general discourse around.
Yeah, we all said they should be one of the best in the world,
think that they should have achieved more over the last 3 years, and they haven't. So they're overrated for me.
But the overrated is about this season's Champions League.
Well,
not about
didn't
the
actually
3 years.
specify that.
Well, I guess it's whether or not you think
you can make whatever argument you want.
You can to a level, but maybe it's just my Twitter feed, but
It is echo chambers, isn't it, right?
yeah, it is echo chambers, and I've been seeing an awful lot of discourse that's very, very negative about Bayern Munich in the last 2 weeks.
I can understand why, but I think over the last few years, my point is that I think they should have achieved more.
Yeah, they should have.
Yeah.
I'd agree with
I think that we're kind of coming from the same angle here in some ways, in that I think because they've underperformed in recent years, going into this season, no one thinks of Bayern Munich as a dead, like one of the dead cert favourites for the Champions League anymore, in the way that during the mid to late 2010s, I feel like they were favourites almost every season. But in reality, their starting lineup is incredibly strong in almost every area in a way that no other team is, aside from Man City and potentially Real Madrid.
All right, I've got 2 more teams, so we'll wrap up Bayern Munich there. I like both of your arguments. You're getting a point each. Joe
Nice, I
and
like that.
Dougie.
Thank you, Henry.
Nice.
Next up, we've got another classic Champions League team. It's Barcelona. Underrated or overrated?
This is harder.
3, 2, 1.
Oh, it's happened again.
How does that
Happened
happen?
again.
This link up.
That's so funny.
The duos you never knew you needed.
Love it.
So
I
let's just clarify that. We've got underrated with Zac, overrated with Mikey, underrated with Dougie, and overrated with
It will
Joe.
also be on screen as they're
Again.
watching the
Yeah.
video.
Again,
I think you guys started with underrated last time.
Yeah,
we'll
go on, you
kick
go.
off with
Yeah, you
underrated
start.
this time. I'm thinking towards the Champions League. When Barcelona are being spoken about, they don't even come anywhere near to the top 5 in general conversations about the Champions League and how far they will go in that. And obviously with what they did last year in terms of La Liga and the kind of squad that Xavi has managed to build despite obviously the financial situation, they have been playing really good football and been managing to be quite impressive in their division. It is going to be interesting to see whether that can kind of convert over to the Champions League, because obviously we saw it didn't go so well last year. But with the sales that they've had to make and the players that they've brought in, I think a lot of people, they could be like a bit of a dark horse for them. And obviously because of the name of Barcelona is one of such like history in the Champions League, and obviously all the players that they've had and the times they've won it, a lot of maybe the generic kind of casual football fans will always think of them as being these incredible team that will always go far.
Does the actual football fan now, do they actually believe that Barcelona are still that team? I feel like for the last 3 or 4 years that discourse has really changed.
I think if you asked
amongst general football fans like Barcelona.
if you asked 100 English people who are interested in football, how good are Barcelona, they would still probably say that they're one of the best teams in the world. Because I think sometimes we work in football and we constantly are always talking about it.
So over
Everyone
the
we
general
work
public,
in-
you're suggesting here.
Yeah, exactly. Which is the way I kind of look at all of these and how the general public are looking at it. And it's kind of the same what I had with Bayern Munich as well.
You're saying they're underrated, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying the general public don't think they're good?
No, you're basically saying
No, I'm
they're a
saying-
dark horse. In your opinion, they're a dark horse and they could do better in this Champions League than they're being
People
made out to be.
expect. Yeah.
Despite the fact you've just made the argument that the general public think they're the best team, one of the best teams in the world.
No, I heard your argument.
Maybe
so
I'm
don't worry.
confused.
I didn't really get it.
I'm
I'm
slightly
confused.
confused with that. I've gone overrated
Yeah.
for like pretty much a polar opposite reason here. Like I think that Barcelona fans put so much
The
weight
Barca fans.
onto their own side in terms of the Champions League and the Champions League success, to the point that it has and will affect them in the future, because they have basically sold off parts of the club to have immediate Champions League success, that they now believe they are and should be competing to win this Champions League for sure amongst the favourites. And I just do not see that as being the case. I don't see this Barcelona side as being able to match up to a Manchester City, to a Real Madrid right now on the European stage. I know that they beat them over the course of a La Liga season last year, but I still think in the big moment matches in the Champions League, Real Madrid's success and experience pushes them over the line. You know, Xavi doesn't have a lot of Champions League level management experience. I just, for me, they are still a slightly undercooked side in terms of their experience on the pitch. They've got some fabulous young players, especially in that midfield. But on the European stage, I still think they're a little bit short.
I did it less on like their hopes for this season and their chances of winning the Champions League. I did it on their performances over the last 12 months and whether they've been overrated or underrated. I think they've been slightly underrated. I think their defence, particularly last year, I know ter Stegen had that phenomenal year, but they did have a really good defence up until the final few months of the season. They were on track to break the record for fewest goals conceded. And people love to laugh at the fact but people love to laugh that they got knocked out of the Champions League, but they're also in a group with Bayern, who we've just been talking about as a great side, and Inter Milan, who reached the final. They then came up against Man United in the Europa League, who were in a really good moment at that particular time as well. And I just don't think they're as bad as people make out right now. And I think people are quite negative about Barcelona, aside from their own fans.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if this was last season, I would have said. Actually, the start of last season, I went out on a limb and I said Barcelona would win the Champions League
On this
last
very
season.
show, mate.
On this very show, maybe on this.
It was
very
on
show.
Team Talk.
It was on Sunday Vibes as well. I think I said they'd win the Champions League. So yeah, I said it twice then. But I think Barca are a significantly well. They are in a much easier group, but I think Barcelona as an actual, in terms of the actual team, in terms of their strength, I think are a much weaker shout this year. Not contextualised with the group that they've been given, etc. Like I think they'll probably make the second round.
Given against their rivals. You mean?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Champions League is. I don't know if I'd want to say it's weaker this year than last year. Probably not actually. But I think Barcelona will definitely get out of the groups. They'll probably make the quarter-final. But I just think this Barcelona team now, especially given that there is the expectation now really to go on and win another league title, given that the financial loopholes they've had to go through and the selling off their future, etc., that Joe's already highlighted. They're expected to go on and win La Liga again, and go deep in this Champions League. And I think if they come up against a Bayern or a Real or a City, or even an Arsenal, I think they will struggle. And it's not necessarily on the defensive end. Actually, I think I agree, Dukes. I think defensively they have been a lot better under Xavi, and that's been where their best transfer business has been done over the last 12 months. I can't really think of many sides who've done as good business when it comes to the defence as Barca, but their forward line has really taken a hit. Ansu Fati going to Brighton, Ousmane Dembele going to PSG. I know they managed to get a lot of money through the door with sales this summer in the end, but those are two massive players who have left the club. I know Ansu Fati as well wasn't really favoured by Xavi, but I think that's on Xavi. So now you have a forward line which is way more reliant on Robert Lewandowski. I know Lamine Yamal's coming in, but it's like you can't be relying on a 16-year-old to be inspiring that forward line.
So you don't think, I know they lost Mbele, but with Gundogan coming in as goal scoring midfielder, João Felix as well, you don't think that there's even sort of João Cancelo providing sort of attack?
Yeah, I like João Cancelo as well, but like, are we actually going to say that João Felix is going to be the difference maker for Barcelona in the Champions League? Like he could be, but we haven't seen him do it for any other side yet. So I'm skeptical on the João Felix stuff. Like maybe Xavi will transform his career. Like that could happen. But like Gundogan, like I think Gundogan great, but like I don't know. Again, I'm not like Gundogan 2021, 2022 and 2022, 2023 at Man City. Like that's the only time in his career that he's really been that kind of player. Like is this Barcelona side going to be cut out for Gundogan to suddenly become clutch in the last 2 months? Like Barcelona's season in the Champions League might be over by that point. I think Gundogan slightly overhyped player in terms of that stuff. Personally, like he amazing in the Premier League and in the FA Cup final and stuff.
Well.
Yeah, like I think I don't really see him as being like you can't put it on him like to like produce for a forward line which has lost a lot of talent. Like you need wingers. Like Barcelona don't have any wingers aside from Rafinha really. So yeah, even Abdi was sold in the summer. So yeah, that's where I worry about them.
Right.
That's where I think that.
I suppose it just depends where you think the general temperature is on Barcelona. It's very subjective. You
Do you
can
think
argue
their fan base would be happy getting to a quarter-final?
I think they should be.
But do you think they would be?
I think the loudest.
They would not be.
The loudest accounts on Twitter.
But the Barca
wouldn't be,
fans, you shouldn't make your opinion on the Barca fans because they are the most delusional. We did it last week. They're the most delusional fan base out there.
But it's
Well,
also
I think Chelsea got the points on that.
But it's also on the
West
club
Ham.
itself.
Maybe
It's also on the club itself in terms of what they are setting out to do, and they want
their
success
achievements.
now. They want
Right.
success now.
But no
And-
club of Barca's standards though is going to be like, oh, we'll accept the quarter-final. They're all going to always say, we
I've
want you
heard
to go
enough.
to the
I've heard
final
enough.
and-
for
That's
the-
it.
I've heard enough.
Decisive.
Dougie and Mikey are getting a point for that.
Woo.
So
Love it.
I think after 2 years of not even getting through the knockouts, I think they would accept a quarterfinal at this point. All right, last one. We've gone from two big Champions League teams to another team, and that's PSG. Where are you putting them?
Who's their group?
PSG, underrated or overrated? They're in with Dortmund, Milan, and Newcastle.
this is where things could get cut
And how
out
they
in a
started?
few weeks'
How have
time.
they started the league so far?
They had 2 draws and then 2 wins. I
They're
believe.
second, aren't they?
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Hey.
Whoa.
Come on again.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This is working.
Oh, underrated. You're the
Yeah, yeah.
overrated.
Yeah.
Wow. Go ahead.
Even now, even after Messi and Neymar's departure,
Yeah.
everyone being pretty down on them.
Yes, I've just seen it all before. Like every single year, it's a new solution to PSG. This is the new guy that's going to save it. This is the new idea behind the future and how they're going to. And it never works. It literally never works.
Until it does.
But if your working is winning the Champions
It
League,
has to be.
but that is incredibly
has to be
difficult
the
to do.
success.
I don't know
care.
whether
that
they've
has to
always.
be the success.
I don't know
of
whether
PSG.
they've always had disastrous years. There have been some really bad years in there. Last year being one, but I don't know whether you can solely rate the success.
The success of PSG can only be rated by winning the Champions
I
League.
don't
at
think
this
it can
stage.
this year.
Yeah,
can.
I think it can, but I think PSG.
So you're saying PSG going to win it?
I think they're up there, despite me saying that Bayern Munich were up there ahead of them. I just think this PSG squad. I just think it's. I think they did really good business in the summer. I know they do a lot of business every summer, but I just think the attacking signings that they've made.
Mate, we said this
They
last
have a
summer.
lot-
They
they
had
have a
them as
lot
one
of
of the
options.
winners of the window last summer as well.
Yeah, but not in an attacking sense. Like last summer, they were still relying on like Messi, like who doesn't do any defensive work,
Ekitiko's
Mbappe
their
doesn't do
backup,
any
yeah.
defensive work, and Neymar who's barely around. Like they were still relying on those three. Like now
Yeah.
they've got like actually quite a hard working front line. They've got like 2 of the best young strikers in Europe in Moani and Gonzalo Ramos.
Gonzalo Guedes
Well,
is lucky to get that.
And Mbappe's there as well. Like he's got like there are people in that forward line who can now do a lot of that work. And Mbappe doesn't. I don't know. I feel like we could see Mbappe really come on fire in this Champions League. And I just think in a knockout sense, I think just in a knockout tournament. Again, Luis Enrique, Champions League winning manager. I know it was a long time ago.
Very long time ago.
I wasn't even that big a fan of him as an appointment, but I just think he has more options than previous managers did in knockout ties. If you've got Kolo Muani on the bench, and you can just bring him on for 70 on the 70-minute mark. I don't think we really had that with the PSG side. At least in the last few years, yes, they did a lot of work to sort out their fullbacks and sort out their midfield and whatnot. But I think in terms of the attacking talent at their disposal,
Do you think the midfield's better now than it was last year?
I think Ugarte is a really good signing, but I don't think it necessarily matters about that so much. I think the forward line was always really the problem in many respects, and I think I just think the options there are really, really frightening.
I think a lot of people are going with the same thought as you, Joe. That's why I say underrated. I think majority of people out there would be saying that PSG.
This is from my point of view. It's from PSG as a project.
But I think everybody is saying that PSG always do this. They spend loads of money and everything, then they never actually get anywhere. And I'm sure that'll be said as well before their first game. And they're actually in a very tough group by the sounds of it. They are managing to get out of their group. I think they'll
That's the
definitely
thing as
become
well.
one of
There are plenty of people who will be saying that PSG won't get out of that.
Yeah,
group.
exactly.
Because I think Newcastle
yeah.
are probably being
Well,
slightly
save that-
overrated
save
going
that-
into it.
save
Again,
that
I think
thought.
that does come. This comes semi down to how you see it as a perspective, doesn't it? From my perspective, PSG's owners will be seeing that group as a doddle. They should be seeing that group as a doddle, given how much money they've currently put into that side and what their aims are for PSG as a project. They should be seeing Newcastle and thinking we've got to eat them up. They are a decade behind us in terms of investment and where as a project.
But they have taken a huge detour this summer. I think they probably are more
They take a
realistic
huge
than.
detour every
But
other
no,
summer, man.
but they are younger. They are more inexperienced than ever before. They probably don't have that many outstanding world-class players, really consistently world-class players, aside from Mbappe just yet. I mean, Dembele is on his day, but when is his day? When he's fit, Ramos and Kolo Muani are more ones for the future than right now being absolute superstars. I think PSG could subtly have a really good Champions League campaign, and I don't think people are expecting it in the same
not at
way.
all.
They wouldn't be in my top 4 favourites, top
100%.
5.
People will be talking about Real Madrid. We'll be talking about Bayern Munich as we have. We'll be talking about Man City. Arsenal will be up there. Got no idea how they're going to fare as well.
If Luis Enrique, let's say he scrapes Ligue 1, because it could be a bit closer this year, and he doesn't win the Champions League, is he still in charge next season?
Yes.
I think
No, he's
Ligue
not.
1 will
He'll
be
be
really
sacked.
straightforward.
He will
this
be
year.
sacked. He'll be sacked.
He will. He'll be in charge.
They're always doing this. Liga
If
is
he
not
make-
enough for them.
And if he makes a semi-final of the Champions League, he'll be still.
It's
in.
It
not
does
enough
depend
for
the
him.
manner. It does
It's
depend the
not
manner.
enough
I think
for
it does.
him.
I think it does.
There have been times for PSG in the way they've got absolutely destroyed in the Champions League. I think it's a little bit different. If he can actually make
You get turned over at St
a
James's Park and lose 4-0 and not win
different
Liga
story.
and only win Liga, then yeah.
different story. But if they actually manage to get to the semi-finals and get knocked out by an incredible Man City side, very different story, or
Yeah.
Real Madrid side, whoever it might be. I think they are
What
fairly
happens
underrated.
to Tuchel post-Tuchel? Like battling to a Champions League final.
But that was a different
Yeah, he
era.
fell out with
That
the
was also a different
hierarchy,
era,
didn't
and Tuchel fell out with the with the
They fall
board.
out with everybody. PSG owners fall out with everybody.
But I
is
think
it-
that
does
was
this have
that
to
was in
do-
the win now era. Like the players now aren't
They
win
are
now
still
players.
win now. They
I
are
don't
still
know.
in win
I don't
now
know.
era.
It's very young
They will
squad.
never not be in a win now era with the Qatari ownership.
I don't know. I feel as if they've got one more year. He's got at least a year to bed this team in. I'm giving a point to everyone who put underrated on their board.
Ooh.
Wow.
Right.
Very decisive, Henry. I like it.
All right, well, that actually leads us quite nicely onto the next question, because we want to know how the group of death featuring Newcastle, PSG, Dortmund and Milan will shape up once the group stage is over. So, yeah, organise those on your boards. 3, 2, 1, show.
Ooh.
Newcastle
bottom, here we
for
go.
Dougie.
Yeah.
Here we go.
A Sunderland fan, right?
Here we
Strange
go.
that, isn't
Sunderland
it?
fan.
Strange
Away
that.
the lads.
I actually think I put my allegiances aside for this one. I do think that they'll get found out at this level in this group. There's some
Sounds like the
serious,
allegiances are well out.
there's some serious quality in this group, and I think Newcastle are a few injuries away from having quite a difficult time.
I do agree.
There isn't
Yeah.
much depth at centre back. We don't know the extent, or at least I can't remember the extent of that Sven Botman injury. I think they're still quite weak on the left flank as well.
Is there much depth at Dortmund anywhere?
I think Dortmund have more Champions League experience. They've been in better groups than this before. They've got out of groups in their recent past. Look, they were disappointing last year against Chelsea. I think that was a real shock result. But I think they've got more creativity than this Newcastle side as well. I think Newcastle have a very workmanlike, work hard, full intensity
Do you not
midfield.
think-
Not
not
that
think-
much
They've got
creativity.
they've got a much better midfield than Dortmund. Their
I agree with
midfield is
that.
so
I agree
much
with that. But
better.
in terms of their creativity going forward, I just think against better sides, they will be slightly found out for a lack of creativity.
But Newcastle last season were pretty good against
I
a
agree.
good side last year, where they were more than happy to sit back and deal with pressure. and
Yeah.
have the whole-
They'll run some of these sides off the park for brief patches in games. I just don't think they'll have the quality to beat any of these sides on a consistent basis
I
together.
don't know,
man.
man. Like we saw
I think
that
their
happen
depth
last
in the
year.
I mean, you
forward
guys have got
line's
them
really good.
third.
I've got
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
but only because I just
It's
think
third or fourth.
I think PSG clearly, obviously, the most stacked team here. I was very tempted to put Milan top.
Same,
Actually,
I was thinking
I was
that.
tempted to put Milan top. I just think Milan have showed themselves to be a really, really good tournament team over the last year. Obviously, beat Napoli, who were at points last season the second best team in Europe after Man City.
Made to the semis,
Made it past. Made very light work of poor Spurs team in the second round, but. I just think that this Milan, and they've started the season really well. I just really like this Milan team, and I think like Pioli's style of play is good for tournaments. And in a similar way, I think Newcastle, if they make the Champions League next year, I'd back them to get out of a group, or if it was a slightly easier group, I'd probably back them to get out of it. But it's just like, it's his first time in European competition. Full stop, but I think they're better than Dortmund, Newcastle. I just think that, I think the depth in the forward line is really. I just think there's a lot of goals in there, and I understand centre back issue, but the full back positions are fairly well covered now. The midfield, I just think they win the midfield battle against Dortmund for sure, and I think they could take. I think they take a point off Milan maybe, or maybe they even get a win over Milan at St James's Park. It's going to be.
They're more settled than Dortmund as well, man. Like we might come. Do we think Terzic is still even going to be in charge by the second round of group games?
I would have thought so.
Atmosphere is going to be huge. I mean, to be fair, it's maybe the best group as well for atmosphere
Yeah.
too.
Oh,
Crazy
yeah.
one of these
Crazy,
stadiums.
crazy.
No doubt.
But atmosphere for St James's Park, back in the Champions League, like some of these guys are going to have a
I just
real
think
tough time.
there's so much
playing
experience in these playing squads. Are they terrified of going to St James's
there, man.
Park?
I think that's a bad thing
How
if they're
much
not.
experience
Like,
really
if
is in
you're
these
going-
playing squads though? Like really,
I mean, Milan made the semi-finals last year. PSG have got
But we've just
experienced
spoken about
internationals.
PSG changing their entire side and going young.
Yeah, younger, but I mean, still look at Marco Asensio's played at Real Madrid for years. It was Dembele. Gonzalo Ramos has been, starred at a World Cup. There's a lot of they're not intimidated by atmospheres. It's not like.
But the Newcastle side are also.
Sandro
internationals
Tonali
as
made
well,
the-
right?
made the
I'm not
Champions
saying,
League
I'm not saying it's going to
semi-finals last
affect.
year.
I'm not saying it's going to affect the Newcastle players going to these stadiums. I just don't see St James's Park being as big a factor as everyone's
I
making
don't know.
out.
I just think the noise is going to be a different level to what at least those first couple, like this season's Champions League stuff. Like,
Yeah,
they're
I
gonna
think it will be
levels-
very. I think it'll be very noisy.
Yeah, no, I know- I do know
They'll
what you
get
mean,
their
Dukes.
tifos out, and it'll be brilliant. And they'll be defending Saudi Arabia outside, and it'll be lovely. But I just don't see them getting out of this group.
I do think that I'm the only one that's gone for Milan top.
Yeah.
I just think that I think PSG will classically, as they do every year, bottle it in at least 2 of the games. They can never ever maintain pressure. It feels like PSG, they just collapse at some moment. That it's all going to go wrong at some moment.
But it doesn't like
I
where
think-
you finish in the group. We've seen people finish second
Yeah.
all the time and win the
they
Champions
finish
League. It
second.
doesn't mean
They'll finish
anything.
second, draw Man City at around 16.
I think
Enrique
the
gone
thing
by
is with
January.
PSG though. PSG don't need to because it's such a mad group. PSG don't need to win every game or even
Yeah, I agree.
necessarily win. They could win 3 or 4 games and top that group. Because Milan are going to drop points away at Newcastle or Dortmund probably. Newcastle, all these teams are going to drop points against each other. PSG just need to
It'll be a
win
low-scoring
2
fight.
games.
I went down to
emphatically, and
who's
that'd be
got
it.
most firepower. I think I've kind of ranked it in firepower, and I think Newcastle have the least, even though they've got
Dortmund have
Isak.
definitely got the
With
least.
No,
Dortmund have definitely
Dortmund.
got
Seb
the
Haller
least.
scored what? 11 Champions League goals
How
for
many of
Ajax in a
Dortmund's
season.
how many of Dortmund's front three
Wasn't
would
fit
start
for
for
last year.
Newcastle's front three?
I think Julian Brandt definitely starts for
Yeah.
Newcastle. I think Daniel Marlin starts on the right-hand side for Newcastle. I think Seb Haller's got an argument to start for Newcastle.
Over Isak.
Over Isak.
I think
Yeah,
Isak goes
dunno.
to Dortmund. He's the star of the team.
Was at Dortmund?
It was at Dortmund, but he was a lot
Yeah,
younger.
not
I'm not going to
different
use that as a
Different
counter
guy
argument,
now,
but
different guy.
yeah, I mean Isak would feature. I don't know whether he'd necessarily be the star. of
Callum
the team.
Wilson would start for that Dortmund team.
I'm not so sure, man. I think you're underestimating Seb Haller.
Seb Haller is good. I think Callum Wilson right now is better. I think Brandt starts on the right. I don't know about Marlon or Adeyemi in that.
Well, you
I don't know.
play Miguel Almiron over Marlon,
Might play
I
hard.
don't think I would rather have Marlon on the left.
Anthony Gordon on the left.
but we're talking about the right.
Yeah, but
we're
you'd
kinda
Miguel
getting
Almiron
into
plays on the right.
We're getting into too much of the
Yeah.
nitty gritty, I
The
guess.
nitty-gritty.
But
So I don't think
yeah.
there's anything else to say
Okay.
on this. Sorry, Dukes, points to you 3 for this one.
Well
I
said.
do think
Wow.
that Newcastle will better Dortmund based on what I've heard. So,
Mm.
sorry.
You realise it's not what you think; it's who argues better.
Based on the arguments that I've heard, is
Good,
what I
good,
just.
good.
Is what I,
Well, says Henry. And also, Henry, you can all point to whatever the f*** you want, mate.
Exactly.
So ignore it.
Because ultimately, it doesn't matter.
All right. Next, rank the English teams in order of who you think will go furthest in the Champions League. City, Arsenal, United, and Newcastle.
I wouldn't be surprised if we all had the same order.
Yeah.
We will.
3, 2, 1, go. City, Arsenal,
Yeah,
United,
exact same.
Newcastle.
Right.
Bosh.
Let's
There
move
is
on.
always a
Yeah.
surprise though, and people are very
There is.
confident about Arsenal this year.
Yeah.
I think United
And
could
we
well
also
end up
saw-
being the surprise. United could crash out.
Who's
Like-
what?
Yeah.
Do you know our pre-season predictions? How often
out.
those
Could crash
tables
out.
are so wildly inaccurate.
Yeah.
Like there's always shocks.
Well, the issue with
think
United,
the
I mean, we
surprise
were
is
just
United
saying
could
there,
crash
right?
out.
There's the Champions League, anything can happen. That is the thing. Like Arsenal, and Arsenal City's group, the thing that goes in their favour is their groups are fairly
Arsenal
easy.
going to batter
Their groups are fairly easy. They should be topping
Pressure's on,
both
mate.
of them.
Pressure's on them, mate.
Arsenal could field the 21s and win that group.
You'd hope so.
Sevilla, where are they? Bottom of the league?
Not doing well yet.
Yeah, it's
Nons,
the
where are they?
easiest
Second
group
bottom of the
in
league?
recent memory.
Have lost a lot of talent. they should win. They should
Yeah,
win.
yeah,
They
yeah.
should win heavily. But
I guess
Newcastle should be getting.
could-
Arsenal should be getting 18 points from that group.
But
like-
Arsenal could, for some reason, Arsenal could win their group and pick out Milan.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you know
They'll battle
something weird happens against Milan.
Arsenal battle.
Yeah. But
just-
it would still be like you'd still expect Man City to go further than Arsenal generally.
There's no doubt City number one. I think
Right.
United definitely could end up being the surprise flop of this Champions League group. I think it's very, very possible that they could swap round there with Newcastle and crash out also at the groups. I think that Galatasaray away is a real problem for Manchester United. Our away record absolutely stinks when any time there's pressure turned on, and there will be pressure there. I don't see us getting a result against Bayern Munich away from home either. So for me, United, should be progressing from the group, but the forward line is extremely thin. I think that the back line, given the current injury problems already that we're seeing, Rafa Varane injured, Luke Shaw injured. If there's another injury to a centre back, I think United could struggle to get out of the group.
I think. First of all, I don't think Man United have ever won a game in Turkey, like in my lifetime. Like, even on the even on-
Istanbul, Başakşehir still get flashbacks from that corner
Başakşehir.
kick.
I think even the year that United beat Fenerbahce and really scored that hat-trick at Old Trafford. I'm pretty sure Fenerbahce then battered United.
So bad.
You famously went there
several.
and they made like the loudest stadium noise
Yeah.
ever
Welcome to hell.
recorded, and Alex Ferguson said it was like the
Yeah.
scariest thing you'd ever
So
heard.
so I think United. Yeah, I think that Galatasaray game is a write-off. But I don't know. Like it all.
Zaha.
like free.
No, it is honestly, Mikey's right.
Yeah, it's a
Very
write-off.
happy.
That's 0 points there. But so yeah, it all comes down to those Bayern games. I think actually equally like United's first month, a bit like last season. I think maybe people are underrating them a little bit, like forgetting that that they probably will grow into this season a little bit. Will they grow into it in time? I think United do make the last 16. I think we may all look very silly when Newcastle actually make the quarterfinals of this year's competition, but so be it.
Especially me.
Yes, especially you, Dukes. But City, it just feels. It actually felt very clear, this one. It felt very clear. I think Arsenal, if they get to the quarterfinals, that's a really positive first season back in the Champions League. But I think quarterfinals probably should be what they expect to achieve.
Arsenal fans want a semi. That sounds weird. But they want a
They're the
semi-final.
fourth best team in Europe, aren't they?
They're probably in the top four,
say.
but that doesn't mean
Their European record is so bad.
And you also they've
New team,
they
no fear there.
last year they did amazing in the league. They were not so good in Europe, right?
No.
Like it is going to be interesting to see how Declan Rice steps up to the Champions League. And
New
also
team,
to
though. There's
play
no
Premier League
fear there.
football.
I think that plays
There's
a big
no
factor. I think
There's
it's
no
positive.
fear until they pull a Bayern
no
Munich,
fear, but there's
or they
also
pull
no
a whoever,
experience,
right?
yeah.
Like they pull one of these big teams. All that goes out the window whilst you're also battling Man City.
I know, but
in the
Declan Rice
Out of
has
all the
played in
big teams
European
in Europe, they've
Championship
probably
finals.
got one of the worst records in Europe out of all the big teams in Europe.
Yeah, and they haven't played in there for a long time. But I know that we're talking about lack of experience in big moments. But Gabriel Jesus has been there in big moments. We've seen Declan Rice operate in European Championship
Zinchenko.
finals. Zinchenko's played in big moments. I think
Didn't
even
Zinchenko
though they
give
are
away-
young,
yeah.
I think that even though they are young, they slyly have like a decent level of experience for their
Oh,
age.
yeah.
Erdegaard's played in the biggest of moments for big teams.
But it is going to be you're playing, I can't remember when the fixture list is, but you're playing the quarterfinals of the Champions League. You're then playing Man City on the weekend. You're then playing the second leg
Arsenal's
of that.
depth is great.
and
Comes
then
down
you're
to
playing-
draw so much though.
No,
I
but-
wouldn't be surprised if
but it's
Arsenal
dealing
got
with-
knocked out in the last 16. I wouldn't be surprised if Arsenal won it. I think they'd be.
Yeah.
Arsenal's
Genuinely, I
depth
think
is
they could win it.
fantastic. Arsenal's depth, let's not start underrating Arsenal's depth.
I'm not
Like,
underrating their
behind
depth,
the
but it's
strikers
a very
are good,
different.
the
It's a
wingers are
very
good.
different world where you're trying to compete at both levels of it.
Sunday, Tuesday, Sunday,
and
Wednesday.
be successful in that.
I could see Arsenal getting to a semi-final.
All right, point to Joe for that round.
Thank you, Henry. Cooking.
Okay, 2 answers on your next board, please. I want to know who you reckon is going to be your biggest flop in the Champions League, and I also want your dark horse. I'm thinking like a Benfica to the quarters, Inter to the final. Who's the team that you think?
Can I
could
have a
go-
look at the
Can you
teams
show me
again?
the whole thing, please?
Yeah, let's go have a look. I do have the groups up here.
Wow, the flop is tasty.
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
3, 2, 1. Show your boards.
Bosh.
Gosh.
Dark horse. Oh, PSG a dark horse. Come on.
PSG
They're not a
dark horse.
I know that-
I mean, that was our argument.
I know we said they're underrated, but they're not a dark horse, though, are they? It's like
Excuse me.
it's what everyone said Italy were dark horses for the
I
Euros.
did give an example like Benfica getting to the quarters.
I have to
What,
say,
that's all right.
Benfica to the quarters is a bigger surprise than PSG finally ending their Champions League hoodoo.
Yeah,
Come on,
it would have
guys,
to be
let's-
Benfica to the semis. Come on. I'm
Um,
saying Leipzig to the final, baby. I'm saying Leipzig to the final.
All right, I think actually I'm surprised no one's talked about Real
let's say
Madrid.
Real Madrid. Let's
Yeah,
come
I
to
like that. I
Real
like
Madrid.
that.
What is your
Jukes,
flop?
I
What
was
is
very
flop?
close. I was very close to picking
Real Madrid, I think, will get out of the group. But I don't think they'll
Or a
go that
tournament.
much further depending on the draw. Like, I don't think you can win a Champions League with so few options up front. And I know Vinicius Junior and Rodrigo are
Bellingham at
sensational.
number 9.
Yeah, Bellingham is not a number 9. I don't think that works.
He
against-
is.
He's been doing it though.
He's a number 9.
They are not winning a Champions League with Hosselu as their starting number 9.
But
I
winning-
think they do have great depth and they are amongst people's favourites, but I don't think they should be. And I think they could flop quite badly this year.
But I think I think for Real Madrid, like getting to the semis, which I feel they could do, is expected of them. Quite
Well,
to be honest.
exactly.
And like,
it's not expected this year. It's
and
not
so
going to
you
happen.
think, you
this
think
year,
they won't
I
even
should
make the
say.
You think they won't make the quarters?
It depends on the draw, of course, but like they got absolutely battered by Man City last year, and I think that did show the gulf in quality between them and the very best sides. And I think they are weaker this year than they were last year, even with the addition of Bellingham.
It's true, yeah. I mean, they've lost Benzema, haven't they? I kind of see it like I think Real Madrid can't be expecting to win it this year. I know they do every year, and obviously they had.
What happens if they sign
many
Mbappe in January?
Not happening.
Is it going to happen?
Why not?
Why would they spend that money on him?
You
when
just
they can
signed till
just get him for
2026
free?
or something like that. Is that true?
Nope.
And also
Point
Real
on the
Madrid,
back, yeah.
and also like we speak about PSG and Barcelona being kind of win now. Like Real Madrid are, they obviously are always win now, but also they have a very long term project. Like I don't think adding Mbappe to the mix, that's a potentially destabilizing thing halfway through the season. I don't think that Real Madrid don't make those kind of snap judgments anymore in the transfer
They
market.
bid 150 million euros for him last January.
Did they? I can't even remember
6 months
that.
left of his
But, like,
contract,
I
and
think
everybody
might
was
have,
saying,
yeah.
"What
Can't
the
remember.
hell are they doing? This is the most ridiculous bid ever."
I can't even remember that, to be honest.
I
I feel,
happens in
but
football.
yeah, I think the Mbappe saga has rolled on so long now. I would be surprised if they made a judgment like that. And even so, like, does adding Mbappe to that squad? Anyway, I don't know why I'm arguing. Napoli are my flops.
Let's get back on track.
Napoli are my flops. I kind of feel a bit bad about this because I don't know how much Napoli expect, but I can see Napoli not making the quarterfinals, and I think their squad is, one of the top 8 squads in Europe. I still think they're great, but I think Spalletti leaving, Kim Min-jae leaving is big for them. I think they still have it in them to compete for the Serie A title, no doubt. Still think they're great in that respect. But Kvara has been off since the second half of last season.
George very smug in the corner.
But I think, I just think Napoli, are not going to light up the competition in the way that they did last year.
Fair.
I think Leipzig look really great this year. Everyone saw Xavi Simons and Sesko's goals the other day.
Crazy.
I think they're a really strong shout to challenge Bayern for the Bundesliga title. I think they are the second best team in the Bundesliga.
What,
And
Bayer
I think-
Leverkusen?
I think they're better than Bayer Leverkusen. Yeah, over the course of the season they will be, and I think they've got a better squad.
Have a little share,
they've
mate,
got a better squad, and a more experienced coach. And they've done it before. They've made the semi-finals before in the Champions League.
And
I
that
think
is
over-
in that weird one-legged year, though.
in a weird one-legged year, but they were
We
they
talked
were
about Real
brilliant.
Madrid getting dispatched by Man City last year. I mean, Leipzig, it was an absolute humiliation.
Yeah,
Well, we'll see what happens,
but that's just reliant. I mean, and in some ways that
Lying
goes
and
against
also-
that goes against Dougie's
Gavardi
argument
on
as well. It's like, what if Leipzig just don't get Man City until the semi-finals? That's very, very possible that happens.
Well, they get in the groups.
Well, they get in the groups, yeah.
So they could lose.
But they could
10-0.
go.
Yeah. Oh yeah, true. They did get
Confidence
them in the groups, but that means that they're not going to get them in the second round when they finish second. That
Yeah.
means that they're, I
You
like.
can see the path.
I can see the path. I can see the path
Second
unfolding.
round.
the seas parting for them. I think Leipzig are going to be a really among the teams not in the top 4 or 5. Leipzig, I think, are one of the strongest.
Out
I
of the
think
round of
they're going to be a
Out
team.
at the round of 16.
All right,
Second in the
I want to
group,
hear
still a
about
decent
Atletico as a dark horse. What's you thinking?
Atleti. Everyone said
I like the
Simeone
shout.
couldn't do it. He couldn't change his football. What's he doing? He's scoring goals. He's scoring goals, man. And people don't know what to expect now at Atleti. They've been preparing for defensive football. I think. But in recent seasons, I think people have very much disregarded them as a favourite for getting far in the Champions League. You know what? Fair enough. They have been quite poor, especially in front of goal. Obviously finished bottom of the group last season. However, this is where things are changing. This is where things will get better for them. And I think the way, again, when you look at their level of it, they've just got to reach a semi-final, I think, to be a dark horse. That's what nobody's expecting. There's been the whole Joao Felix situation that's now, well, not fully resolved, but he's gone to Barcelona
For a year, it's resolved.
yeah, like it did last time. And so we'll see what happens. But I think they could be reaching the semi-finals, and that for me would be a great achievement.
Yeah, I agree. I think in Antoine Griezmann, if they can keep him fit, then they
incredible.
definitely have one of the best players in
Good-
Europe
good.
right now.
Morata's playing his best ever football as well.
Yeah,
Looks
and
at
if
it.
Correa.
Morata can be clinical in big moments, which he hasn't classically been across his career, he has been able to put together big purple patches, and I've also got Atletico as my dark horse, by the way. Then I think they stand a really, really good chance. Atletico, I really do. They've got the group is going to be tasty because there's some big away trips in there. And then I know that I called them overrated, but overrated by the club themselves. I still just think every year I just would always put my money on PSG.
Hates PSG.
I was just thinking that. I swear, isn't Morata like the 3rd highest goal scorer for Spain or something like that now?
He's
Probably.
Spain captain, baby.
It's crazy. I've also got flop Dortmund. We've spoken a bunch about them, but as I said, they're going to be bottom of the group, which would be a flop if they finish there.
I don't know about that for a flop, but I do like your Atletico Madrid arguments. You're getting a point for that one, Zachary, and Dougie, you're getting a point for Real Madrid as a flop because I think that is compelling.
Thank you, Henry.
Yes. All right, it's the last round. There's all to play for, looking at the scores. And I want to know who will be in the Champions League final come April. At Wembley Stadium, who are the two teams facing off?
Out of us,
Wembley.
who's going to be there?
It's pretty hard to predict, but we'll give it a go.
Probably in Joe's.
Okay, look. Something always crazy happens in the Champions League.
Thanks, pal.
All right, 3, 2, 1, show.
Bosh.
Oh, no.
So
PSG,
boring.
Bayern. City Leipzig.
Do you want to just go work for Red Bull?
To the final.
The City group versus the Red Bull
You can
group.
pose it.
It gives you wings. Red Bull are going to be flying. They're going to be flying. Salzburg, I reckon, will do quite well as well this year. Have you all gone? Are you gone Bayern Real Madrid first?
I'm going Bayern Real Madrid.
I would like to see Bayern in a Champions League final, but I just thought,
Yes, you
City
would.
Bayern's a bit boring. I don't know. Yeah,
How are
I
Leipzig
think-
going to stop goals, man?
yeah, they're not, but they're going to score loads. They're going to.
They
score
do say
loads.
the best form of defence is attack.
Yeah.
So you think it's going to be a
Timo
remake?
Werner. Timo Werner is a
Sesko.
Champions League winning striker. Benjamin Sesko, one of the top
Xavi
prospects.
Simons.
Sesko.
Xavi Simons, I think, is going to light up this tournament.
He's acceptable.
Dani Olmo's been really
and I
good.
like, I just
Has been
think,
amazing.
I think who's that? Sorry,
Dani Olmo.
Danny Olmo. Yeah, Danny Olmo's really underrated.
It'll
actually.
be
He
up
hasn't-
Man City.
He has, and it's going to be great because
In
Man
Jan.
City are going to absolutely, like we've been saying, obliterate them in the groups, and then Leipzig going to come back with the bit between their teeth in the final at Wembley, and they're going to do one. They're going to do one. on
Wait,
City.
you think Leipzig are going to
They
go and
think
win it?
City are gonna, Leipzig are going to beat Man City in the final.
Yes,
they're going to beat.
Mikey.
They're going to beat
Yes.
Real Madrid. They're going to come up against Real Madrid
Love
in the rounds of 16, and as Dougie predicted, Leipzig are going to beat Real Madrid in the round of 16, and they're going to come up against their old foes Bayern Munich in the quarters. Going to beat them, and then in the
They've beaten
in
them
the,
recently.
and then in the semis, they're going to come across maybe Atletico Madrid or I don't know, maybe Salzburg. Maybe they'll be the Red Bull,
Red Bull
battle in the semis, and then they're going to play Man City in the final. They're
Ooh,
going to beat them
that
after
is-
extra time.
He's been having his crazy
yeah.
juice.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Leipzig leaking goals. I don't know. I just thought it was a laugh.
Real Madrid.
No, it's good fun. It's good fun. Yeah, Real Madrid versus Bayern. I know
No,
Dougie
you
had
think it's
them
flops?
as his flops. I just don't think that's going to happen.
To be honest,
I
I'm not
think
sure whether I do
it'll be
either.
interesting to see. Sorry.
I said, to be honest, I'm not sure whether I do either.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in January because that is a time where a lot of teams can kind of change their fortunes by bringing in some superstar by that point. And maybe if Mbappe does join, that does completely blow things
Joao
out of the
Palhinha,
water.
January.
There is that, a Joao Palhinha move to Bayern helped shore them up in midfield, which is why they both made it to my final. I think Real Madrid is just that experience, man. Like, at times, they do have a thing with the Champions League where you just think they're down and out, and time again they come back. It didn't quite happen last year with Man City, we saw that. But I just think for them, it just could never put it past them. I think sometimes betting against them is always the wrong thing to do. And as for Bayern, I just do think they're an underdog. I think they're, or not an underdog. I think they've just got such a.
Because you had them as
quality-
overrated, so
I had them as
you should choose.
underrated.
You had them as
Didn't I?
over.
What did you have?
Under.
Oh, well, that's what I
Yeah,
mean. I had them as. Even though I put
Delete
them
that
as.
point earlier.
Can't remember what
I
he
can't
fucking did
remember.
with
I
it.
believe you had them as overrated as well, Dukes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
anyway,
you can have them,
Anyway,
you can have
yeah,
them as
no,
overrated
but
and
it
still
was-
rate them as a side.
But you've got them in the final.
Yes, because they are a fantastic side.
But
That's
still,
for sure.
you can still. It
But-
depends on your level of rating.
True,
Yeah,
I did say
that
flops
doesn't
for
matter.
PSG.
Too much. That doesn't matter
Overrated.
too much because it is just that they have got the kind of the Mikey argument. They've got the somewhat the Thomas Tuchel and manager who is great in knockout football, but also the big one, Harry Kane. That guy is going to be determined to do everything he possibly can, and with a squad like Bayern Munich's around him, I think he can get there to that final. The idea of him playing at Wembley as well, he'll be lifting that trophy, and then comes home the Euros.
Bring that back from Germany too. I've gone for the obvious choice, City versus Bayern. I did have City versus Arsenal down, but I bottled it at the last minute, to be honest with you. I just think sometimes the obvious choice is the right choice. And I just think these are the two sides most likely to get to a final.
Points deducted for being dull.
No, well,
Yeah, this
Yeah, what are you on about,
the obvious
man?
choice.
What are you on
You know, like,
They go crazy here.
yeah. I think
Okay.
anybody
Literally
that
a
does,
previous
anybody,
final from
I think
last
anybody
year.
that doesn't have City in the final is lying to themselves.
I
You
just
know,
wanted to
lying to
change,
yourself, lying to
I
yourself.
just
But there
want to
are-
change.
there
I
have
also
been
don't
many
think they've
times-
been like blowing sides
Also,
away.
yeah,
so
City
far
have
this
beat-
season.
And
City
City
have
many
made-
times, not
Sorry,
made
no,
it to
but
the
City,
final.
City at the start of every season start poorly.
They
And
were
then by
awesome.
April are the best team in the world.
They
by
were
about 10
awesome
million
down the
miles.
stretch in the Champions League last year. Leipzig, Bayern, and then that Real Madrid tie. But they were quite lucky in the final. They were quite lucky in the final.
Should
Who? City.
City.
Oh, well,
They
yeah,
were quite
City.
lucky.
Yeah.
Lukaku missed a
Lukaku had his
number of
concrete
opportunities.
boots.
A De Bruyne
I think-
injury.
Yeah,
You know,
I
Haaland
think-
injury that's not
I
seen
think
yet. You
City
never know.
could be. They could be beaten if they got a really difficult draw.
Oh no!
And
If Haaland gets injured, they have to play the second best striker in the league up front.
I still think there's a little bit of. They're just not quite. I mean, it's 4 games into the season, so let's see what they're at. in February.
They always start the season.
They're the
slowly.
best team. I didn't
Yeah.
want to say them again, and I thought PSG would wind up, Joe.
Yeah, it does. Wind me up. Just 'cause it's not going to happen. Luis Enrique 1,000 passes, and it's yet again
And one goal.
in round of 16 defeat. Yeah.
All right, that's it. Okay, Mikey, off the bat, you're getting a point
Yes.
because you've backed Leipzig twice now.
The corporate shill over here.
Yeah.
And Diggs, you're getting a point as well.
Oh, nice.
For what?
Yeah, what's he get a point
Yeah, that's
for,
a shock
man?
one. I like that.
Oh, in Continental Club over
Yeah.
here. God,
Yeah,
pat each other on the back.
No,
I
it's
was
true.
robbed of some points
Crazy.
earlier for that Newcastle.
I think
argument.
PSG buying is a plausible scoreline. I'm excited to see it.
What, and buying Real Madrid isn't.
plausible final.
Plausible
Plausible
score.
He's got
final.
Man City in his. Is that not possible?
All right, well, it's done.
Love that. Stick
Okay.
by your guns.
I'm pretty sure I got the scores correctly. So our winner today is Dougie Critchley with 5 points.
Very good.
Mikey, you got 4. You're in second, and Joe and Zach splitting the
Taking the
scores
rear.
with 3 each. That's it for Team Talk for another episode. Let us know what you thought of our Champions League special. As always, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.